one and all, and listen to tales of excitement and adventure. Tales of daring heroes, savage monsters, and bards who just couldn't keep it in their pants. Tales of friendship, nobility, drunken foolishness, and unforgettable fun. These are tales of role-playing games, fair listeners, and this is Rollin' Bones. My name is Ryan Howard, and I shall be your guide. Good evening, Boneheads, and welcome to Rollin' Bones with Ryan Howard, your source for the best in RPG interviews. My name is Ryan Howard, I am your host and king of the Boneheads, and joining me this evening, returning to Rollin' Bones once again, you know him, you love him, or possibly you hate him. He is one of the craziest guys in the world of OSR, the creator of the bizarre world of Chult. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Venger Satanis. Venger, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a very specific topic that we're going to be discussing this evening. But before we get into that, of course, last time we spoke, you had just, I believe, wrapped up the Kickstarter campaign for Chult Fuschia Malaise, and now that is widely available. Is that correct?
Yep. The PDF has been out for quite some time, and about a month ago, I got the hardcovers. I went out and splurged for the premium, like Smith's own professionally printed books. They're all hardcover and full color. There's 1,000 of them, and just selling them off my website, my blog rather, Venger Satanis' old school gaming blog. I sign them, number them, personalize them, and then ship them out to you. So I've got all the Kickstarter backers out now, so now I'm just selling to the general gaming populace.
Absolutely. And if it's anything like the first one, you guys are in for some craziness, because that first game, I still have not found another adventure that was quite like that, and I do mean that as a compliment. That's not me trying to like sneakily say your game's terrible or anything like that. Just the sheer amount of stuff that you threw in there and references upon references that you layered in there. There's truly something for everyone in the world of Chult.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, pretty insane. One reviewer said it was. He compared it the campaign setting or the book itself, or maybe the Black Pyramid, to Nicolas Cage. Like maybe it's the Nicolas Cage of campaign settings, something like that. So I took that also as a compliment, because it's out there. It's weird. It's not like your standard corporate D&D that you're going to get from Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. It's very personalized and eccentric and Gonzo, totally Gonzo. Science fantasy, if you like ray guns and laser swords with your magic missiles and magic swords, then that's what you get.
Absolutely. Science fantasy is one of those very interesting genres that does not get played with very often. I blame Disney for it, because last time someone tried, it was John Carter, and even though that movie is fine from what I've heard, I actually haven't seen it. I
haven't seen it either.
Yeah, the way they crapped on that movie and the way that they just kind of refuse to market it, and then they're just like, no one cares about science fantasy. I'm like, I care. Let's.
Right. It's just like Sword and Sorcery too.
Yeah.
They remade Conan, but not as good, and then it kind of failed or flopped at the box office. And they're like, yeah, nobody cares about Sword and Sorcery, I guess. It's like, no, people do. I mean, that's why you made a dozen movies in the 80s.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't do it correctly, I guess it doesn't hit home, and then Hollywood stops making it. So,
do you follow Midnight's Edge on YouTube at all?
don't think so.
They did a whole they did an interview with the I think he's the CEO of I think Cottage is the name of the company, basically the Robert E. Howard estate, the people who hold the copyrights for film and television and all that. They did an interview with him about just that weird middle period of the history of Conan on the big screen. And it's a fascinating story about all the different ways they were trying to get Arnold back, and they were trying to get the director of the first movie back, and there were some disagreements there, and ultimately Universal just didn't want to do it anymore, and so they did the Jason Momoa thing with a slashed budget. And there's a whole bunch of weirdness going on behind the scenes that really just made that movie not as good as it could have been, as it should have been, as a Conan fan myself.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the movie, because it seems fine, good even, but then afterwards you're just like, whatever, it's okay.
Yeah.
There just wasn't anything in it that really drew you in like the original Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan. I don't know what it is that was missing or that was included and shouldn't have been, but it just wasn't that successful.
Yeah. Now there is Netflix. Netflix has come a knocking and put that paycheck down on their desk and said, we are going to make a Conan series. And I am, quite frankly, a little bit terrified because, and this is as good a segue as we're going to get here into the main topic of today's show, there is a strain, a sickness, a weirdness, a whatever you want to call it, that has been swirling around entertainment and escapism for damn near 20 years now. Probably actually a full 20 years at this point, and maybe even further back than that. I was born in the 90s, so I can't speak on what was happening then. You've heard different names for it, different words for it. Progressivism, wokeism, social justice, whatever you want to call it. It has made its way into all forms of media, into science fiction and fantasy novels, comics, video games, and it's made its way into RPGs as well. And the reason we're talking about this, and the reason I wanted to talk about this, the reason I brought Venger on to talk about this ideology, belief system, whatever you want to call it, is lethal to hobbies. It is lethal to the places in which it sinks its teeth in. We're seeing the comic book industry be absolutely shredded by it in a year where they really could not afford to upset as many of their customers as they continue to upset. We've seen what it has done to beloved franchises like Star Wars. We've seen the ways in which it's poisoned many wells and made a lot of people very upset. And it is here, it's very present in RPGs, and Venger and I are here to discuss why it's here, what to do about it and why we think this is going to ultimately end up being a problem for RPGs if we don't course correct here and learn from the mistakes of others. So that was a lot of me talking. Venger, what are your thoughts on all of this? What's your opinion here? Where do you kind of come at this from?
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay. So I think you're right about it being lethal. Um, and I think it just comes down to those people, the people with that kind of agenda, philosophy, they care more about being woke than they do about whatever it is, whatever hobby they're infesting at the time. So they care more about, I don't know, diversity or representation or political correctness in like a Superman comic, just for instance, than the Superman comic or the characters or anything else itself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take 2 seconds to think about that, creatively, that's just disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
I'm significantly older than you, I guess. I was born in 1974, so same year as Dungeons and Dragons, and it really wasn't until there was something called political correctness, like in the 90s, but it didn't really metastasize until I don't know, maybe the mid 2000s or something like that. I'd say like 2005. So I'd say it's been around for like 15 years, slowly growing and maturing and getting worse, I guess. But in the last 5 or 6 years, it's just been like really hit home. And you can see it everywhere at role playing games, almost to the point where a lot of people are so fed up, they're ready to either unplug and just like completely do their gaming offline, like in the real world, or they're fighting back, which is something that I do all the time, or maybe they're just fed up and they just give the hobby up altogether. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I know some people have. They've quit their blogs or their YouTube channels. They've just kind of gone into hiding because they're just sick of the climate, the ultra progressive, radical leftists kind of thing, which goes into the whole politics, which is so tiresome. I think everybody, including myself, is just so sick of politics right now.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I want to talk about. But I do want to talk about the topic and get more into it. But just generally speaking, it feels like it's become really political, and that's a separate but kind of linked fight that I've been engaged with. I don't know, the last 2, 3, 4 years.
Yep. Yeah, and I feel like so I saw some of this 2018, early 2000, or 2019, as I was getting more and more involved in the RPG world and starting to do stuff like this. Because honestly, I have not been a part of the RPG community for very long. I started playing in college. I was 19 when I started playing, so it's only been about 6 years that I've been playing this game. So I was not aware of kind of what was before 5th edition. I've had to go back and look at all this stuff and kind of absorb history that way, as history, not as a player playing games.
Right.
But one thing that I noticed, it was starting to come about, and there's always going to be one great thing about this hobby is it is by its very nature small. It is a cottage industry, RPGs, and there's really no way to make it any bigger than what it is currently. So there's always going to be people who, have these ideas that they want to play around with in RPG form. And a lot of the people who kind of, purvey that wokeness were making their games and putting them on Kickstarter. I talked about this on Gamertarians months ago. But, they put their game out on Kickstarter. Their 100 or so friends buy it, and maybe a few more people buy it after that, and, they play the game. They do their thing. They've got a booth at whatever convention, and that's their thing. And then you've got, the OSR thing over here, and you've got people who are still doing D20 stuff over here.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's able to kind of, be in their little spheres, play at their individual tables, and do just whatever they want, because that's why we play this game. It's more freeing than a video game or anything like that, because ultimately, you at the table make the rules. The GM and the players decide what goes on in the game, and no amount of anything can really take that away, which is a positive about all of this. But then, right around this year, with a lot of the climate that happened, a lot of the craziness that was 2020, and now that we're in 2021 and it all has stayed with us, it seems like it's just one giant year. But in 2020, there were multiple things that happened, one right after the other, within the world of RPGs that told me it's not just these people over who play this game or that game who are doing this. They're doing it at Paizo. They're doing this at Wizards of the Coast. They're doing it at Games Workshop. It's become mainstream. Wokeness has, locked its claws on the big three of tabletop gaming. So it's here, and now we have to deal with it. We should have dealt with it before, but, now we have to deal with it. Because it's in the games that we love. It's in our D&D. It's in our Pathfinder. It's in our Warhammer 40K. And one of the things that I wanted to just speak about specifically, we talk exclusively about tabletop RPGs here, and bringing in a war game is a little bit weird, but one of the biggest moments of this realization was the Warhammer is for Everyone event. And I just want to read this again. This has been talked to death, but I want to read this again because it demonstrates, one, the presentation, the prestige, the misdirection of this ideology. And the reaction to it demonstrates why the artifice is artifice. It's not genuine. It's a smokescreen. So, Games Workshop puts out this post right after the riots in June, and it says, "Warhammer is for everyone. One of the great powers of our hobby is its ability to bring people together in common cause to build bonds and friendships that cross divides. We believe in and support a community united by shared values of mutual kindness and respect." So far, so everything you've ever known about gaming with a group of people. That's...
Yeah. I was going to say, up to that point,
Yeah.
It sounds pretty good.
That's just what Seth Skorkowski calls the RPG social contract. It's... Yeah, that's that. We all know that. Our fantasy settings are grim and dark, but that is not a reflection of who we are or how we feel the real world should be. Obviously, again. We will never accept nor condone any form of prejudice, hatred, or abuse in our company or in the Warhammer hobby. We will continue to diversify the cast of characters we portray through miniatures, art, and storytelling, so everyone can find representation and heroes they can relate to. If you feel the same way wherever and whoever you are, we're glad you are part of the Warhammer community. If not, and this is the kicker, this sentence here I feel undermines all the goodwill of this statement and highlights the insidiousness of what they're actually talking about here. If not, and I quote, "you will not be missed." So, when, again, I've been talking for a long time. Venger, what does that statement say to you? What is your extrapolation of that paragraph or series of paragraphs as a whole with that particular ending?
If I was to boil it down, I'd say it's like fall in line or get the fuck out.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of people, a lot of good, decent, just ordinary, regular folks, they're perfectly fine with the rest of the stuff, even though there's maybe one or two things we could quibble about.
Mhm.
Um, they're already like doing that or would do that, but just being told what to do, it's like no,
Mhm.
like don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me how to think, how to behave, how to play your game, our game. Um, don't invade, you know, our mental space or our social circles or try to be the arbiter of cultural morality.
Mhm.
Whatever it is, just don't do it. Being anti-authoritarian myself, I don't like it. I have a mother. I don't, and a wife. I don't need to be told, you know, how to play on the playground or how to treat people at the game table. Um, so it's just, I don't know, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It's tacky. It's insulting. And it's kind of offensive
Mhm.
because basically this game company is like, you know, act like we want you to act, or else don't bother coming around, buying our products, playing our game. Like literally, get the fuck out.
Mhm.
That's not what a gaming company should be doing. Um, that's not the way to win friends and influence people. It's just bad business
Yeah.
and bad for gaming. And I've seen that. I saw it, I don't know, months ago, whenever it came out, and heard people discussing it. We probably discussed it a little bit on the Inappropriate Characters show that I do with RPG Pundit and Joe Bittman.
Mhm.
Um, informally, Grim, Jim, Desborough. But, and I don't know what happened to their sales. Maybe you can enlighten me on that. I don't know if it was the get woke, go broke thing in effect, or if their sales weren't really touched, or if it's too early to tell. So maybe you could fill me in on that if you have any information.
So from what I've seen, just from the products they've been putting out, it doesn't seem to me like they made any major changes. And as I was preparing for this episode, I'm not kind of in the Warhammer community.
Right.
I used to be, but I was 13 when I played Warhammer. Um,
Yeah.
but what I saw was there was a big kind of outcry from their fan group saying this isn't th- we already knew that Warhammer was for everyone, and now basically what you're saying is Warhammer is for everyone but you. If you don't fall in line, like you said, and also as you know, I'm also anti-authoritarian. I'm an anarchist. That strikes a kind of a sour note for me as well. And the other thing that I really don't like are using of the charged terms like bigotry, because these terms have meaning, but the way in which they're thrown around by people online, in the media, by just every type of person from every different place that you see them, the way these words are thrown around,
Mm-hmm.
they encompass so wide a spectrum that the term bigot basically means person I don't agree with now.
Right. They literally changed the definition of racism. Like in
Mhm.
real time, not too like just a few months ago. It was in 2020.
Yeah.
Like you look up the definition of racism, and one day, the day before, it was one thing,
Mhm.
and then the day after they changed it, now racism, kind of means something completely different, or encompasses extra stuff that shouldn't be in the definition. That changes its meaning enough where it literally upends what the word means and
Mhm.
how people view it, and then it has so many ramifications going forward. It allows people to just be like, well, that's racist, and he's racist, and she's racist. This whole thing is systemically racist, so just burn it all down.
Mhm.
I mean, you're enabling all that, which isn't good. Um, so yeah, and not just racism, but yeah, bigotry and whatever else was in that penultimate sentence.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so many things can be twisted around and have been, uh, that they've linguistically wiggled their way into either taking people down or censoring people or products. And yeah, it's the wokeism. It's worming its way through our hobby, and we got to protect ourselves somehow, or else it's just going to be taken down the tubes, just like comic books.
Mhm.
Who knows what else?
Yep. And you use the term "burn it all down," and I want to get back to that because that's another aspect of this that I want to talk about. Um, but when you broaden these terms and then you use these terms that have been so broadened, and then you say at the very end, if you meet the qualifications that we here at Games Workshop or we here at Wizards, we'll stick with Games Workshop because they actually wrote it. If you fit within this, what we at Games Workshop view as these particular terms, we don't want you here anymore. Even, no matter how long you've been playing, how much money you've sunk into the hobby, how loyal you've been to the company, how much you have supported what Games Workshop has been doing for the past 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't agree with us, there's the door.
Yeah.
And I don't blame anyone who, at that moment, just like threw their Space Marines in the fire, or ripped up their codex, or did whatever, just based on that statement alone. That no matter how supportive you've been of us, if you fall into these boxes, these arbitrary boxes that are ever shifting, ever growing, ever expanding, if we think that you fall in here, we don't view you as a valued member of our community. Where reality, Games Workshop's a business. The valued members of their community should be people with money. And ultimately, if you keep alienating people who spend a lot of money, Warhammer's an expensive hobby. If you get rid of the people with the disposable income who, have loved your games and played them forever, at some point you're going to find yourself without a Warhammer community.
Right. Yeah. In a lot of these circles, um, it's the people who, are forcing this woke agenda on everybody that are the true racists.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like let's say one of these companies is targeting um, people that they think just by existing they're harassing or threatening people of color or something like that. But let's say there was a person of color that was, complaining about, white people doing this or doing that. Um, a lot of times that's deemed acceptable or even encouraged. Um, But just the fact that you're calling someone out and insulting or demeaning them because of their race, that's racist.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they don't see it like that. They see it as, and that's the whole thing with the changing of the racism. I mean, for people that don't know, if if there's some sort of unequal power dynamic involved, um, then that could be called racist. So just because, if I have a comfortable middle class income and I'm arguing with someone that maybe isn't as financially successful, even if they're much younger and don't have the experience, then that's racist, and the burden is now on me to provide information or provide proof that I'm not racist, and that kind of thing. I mean, you can see what a slippery slope that is. I can get nasty real quick, and I don't think anybody wants that. But it's coming in through the front door, so be aware.
But even that new definition does not hold consistently.
Right.
Because let's say, take myself. I don't make a whole lot of money. I am 25 years old. I make about $35,000 a year in my current job. If I were to criticize, let's say,
like a celebrity or someone that's just very wealthy.
If I were to criticize Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, even though he is way wealthier than I am, he's been the president of the United States, arguably the most powerful man in the world. My criticisms of him can still be construed as racist, even though there is an unequal power balance between himself and me.
Right.
And that's another part of the problem with this particular strain of thinking that finds itself in RPGs. The rules are not the same for every person, in every situation, day to day. They are in constant flux. I once heard someone say about Catholicism, one person's good Catholic is another man's heretic. And that's exactly what this is. One day you could be completely in the good graces of the woke crowd, and then the next day they completely flip on you. Joss Whedon is a great example of this.
Yeah.
Joss Whedon has now been canceled because of various reasons, mostly just around him being a massive tool, which I think we've all known for quite some time. But still, one minute you're the savior, the next minute you're the sinner. And that kind of upheaval causes a lot of people a lot of problems, especially when it comes to creators that people are talking with. Creators, such as yourself, who, interact with people online. How do people treat quote-unquote apostate creators or quote-unquote heretics to this ideology who are active in this RPG world? What is your experience with that been like, Venger?
Yes, I think it was yesterday. It was either yesterday or the day before. To be honest with you, with the lockdown and everything that comes with that, the pandemic, I really forget where I am, who I am, what day of the week it is. But anyway, it was in a day or two ago, and I was checking out the drive-through RPG listing for Chalt, and someone had written down in the discussion that Chalt was in their shopping cart or whatever on drive-through RPG, but now they're not interested because they came to the realization that I support domestic terrorism. or something like that. So, obviously they found something, which I don't hide. I mean, I put it on my blog, on Twitter, Facebook, all over the place, that I'm kind of I'll try to sum it up like a middle of the road, moderate centrist, kind of an old school liberal, but especially when now I'm getting older, I'm 46, I do have a lot of conservative, possibly Republican or Republican libertarian, like in that area, beliefs. And just for that, people want to trash me and my products. Sometimes they want to come right out and lie about me, like that. Like, obviously, I mean, back when I was running the Cult of Cthulhu on a daily basis, that was one of the things, terrorism was one of the things that I was always 100% against. I would tell the other cultists, followers and things like that, that's just something that I was not going to entertain or condone. I mean, that's right up there with child abuse for me. That's like, I like it when people make their own decisions and live their own lives and create their own belief system and values. But that's just something I can't ever get behind, or even condone or turn a blind eye to. If I heard about some cultists, or heard about anybody abusing children or planning a terrorist attack or something like that, I would immediately go to the authorities with that. That's 100% not okay. But yeah, other people, people on the left generally will throw that around like it was nothing. I remember a year or two ago, there was articles or blog posts or something written about white male terrorists that have either taken over gaming or had been there the whole time, and now, I don't know, the woke people were like taking back gaming from us, the white male terrorists, straight white male terrorists or something like that. I mean, that's just an ugly thing to say. But yeah, people like that, that was just the other day that, so I emailed DriveThruRPG and I said, this is not only untrue, but offensive and has absolutely nothing to do with gaming. Please remove that. And they did. I was going to, post a response, but then my wife was like, you know what? That could also get you into trouble, and then people could pile on and I don't know, see that you're defensive or something like that, and then like keep needling you and maybe just nuke it from orbit and be done with it. And so that's what I did. And then they removed it, which is good. So things like that, back with Alpha Blue, when that was called out and that was removed from the virtual shelves of RPG or DriveThruRPG for a couple days, but then that was a misunderstanding, and they put it back on. So little things like that, people come at me all the time. I know they come at RPG Pundit all the time. So if you're outspoken about your beliefs and you don't fall in line with that crowd, then yeah, you can be ostracized, scolded, canceled, and it's terrible. We shouldn't let that happen to people in our community, our hobby, industry. Yeah, that's it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now we've talked a lot about some of what they come at people with, what these symptoms look like. The last thing I want to talk about as far as this goes before we get into, what there is to do about this. Earlier, you mentioned that people will come in and try to burn it all down. And this is ultimately the crux of why I think this is a problem. What you can see in examples of the comic book industry, of Hollywood, Star Wars, gaming, the people who are coming into these hobbies with this on their minds, with this agenda first, rather than wanting to just tell the stories they want to tell and, make the characters they want to make. The people who, want this to be their evangelism, basically. They aren't creating. They aren't just, or they really aren't even mostly creating their own stuff. What they're doing in a lot of these cases is glomming on to the big names, the DC heroes, the Marvel heroes, Star Wars, I've said several times already. They're taking these big names and they use this terrible, awful word that I always know means it's gonna suck, deconstruct it. Ostensibly, they want to deconstruct it to quote-unquote rebuild it better. I never see much in the way of rebuilding. I just see them deconstruct these things that are toxic or whatever word they want to throw around. The word seems to change on a daily basis, like all their words. But they don't ever build something in its place. They don't build something next to it. They don't, say, here is my character. They say, I want to take your character and I want to destroy them because they are the antithesis of what I want.
Right. Yeah, they destroy, they don't create. And that's obviously a problem in a creative field, like comics and role-playing games. If you're only interested in destruction, not creation, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. And guys like you, guys like me, people who get into this hobby for the right reasons, to create things that people enjoy, to, bring joy to people, to build worlds. That's our goal. We just want people to enjoy themselves for 3 hours. We want to build something collaboratively that people enjoy. And when you let someone in who wants to tear down, when you let people in who want to make movies that tear down, that make comics that tear down, video games that tear down, ultimately they tear the whole industry down around them. The comic book industry is crashing. Every time now they make one of those female reboots or a super woke reboot of a beloved franchise, have you noticed that those movies don't do very well? Have you noticed that even, your big ticket Marvel movies, now this year is kind of an anomaly as far as, movie theaters being closed, but these movies aren't doing well. The shows that they do this in, Star Trek Discovery, not doing terribly well. Doctor Who, which Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker have basically cut the head off of and dissected and just, shown everyone the vivisected corpse of Doctor Who and been like, this is the show now. It's gotten the lowest ratings it's ever had because of what they've done. Because all they do is destroy. Yeah. If they were creating, and there are people out there who are creating, who, maybe I don't agree with ideologically. If that's you, then more power to you because you're building something. You are creating something designed to bring joy to people.
Right.
If that's your goal... Oh, sorry. Did you have something to add?
Oh, I was just going to say that sometimes I think they feel like giving a sermon or a lecture, like lecturing us, the audience, on how we should be better than we actually are, how society or culture or gaming or whatever should be better or more virtuous or nobler or whatever. I think that maybe they think that is an aspect of creation. Just trying to like heavy-handedly teach us through their little story or whatever, deconstructed story probably, that we're doing it wrong because of, X, Y, Z. That's not really creation, and that's not really a story. It's not a story that people want to engage with or listen to or watch. that's, but they think that it is. They think like, oh, well, if I just use this half-half story to remind people that they suck, and that they should be better people, then, I fulfill my woke agenda, I pat myself on the back, and then that fulfills the lowest common denominator of a story for whatever I'm creating. And then my job is done. And then I go and collect a paycheck or whatever, and I'm off on Twitter, like, blasting people for not using the right pronoun or whatever. But that's, obviously giving a sermon, that's not the same thing as creating. That's not, what we do. That's not what dungeon masters do or screenplay writers or whatever.
Yeah, there's no joy to be found in hectoring and wagging your finger at people, saying, you've sinned, you've done wrong, you didn't follow the rules that we put forth. When all media and all of these stories focus in on you are terrible, you are awful, that's when people shut off, and that's when people leave. And if you're trying to tell people to quote unquote be better with your game, then you're basically writing a chick tract as a game. You are no better than the people who made Mazes and Monsters. There's
Sorry,
no
Tom Hanks.
There's no artistic merit in what you're doing, because all you're doing is just telling people that they're terrible. You're barely even offering them a way forward, because even with the examples that they put forward of this is what you should be doing, those people never seem happy. Whenever you see something like this, the characters who are supposed to be the righteous ones always just seem miserable and angry, and there's nothing aspirational about their stories, about their characters. And honestly, like, maybe this is me giving them a play that I shouldn't be giving them, but if you want people to listen to what you have to say, and maybe see your self-insert characters that are supposed to be the righteous ones as a viable option for their lives, maybe you should try making your characters happier and more well-adjusted than they typically end up being. And yeah, honestly, if that's what you're here for, to tell people that they're doing things wrong, then that's who doesn't belong. That's who gaming is not for. Gaming is for people who want to have fun, and who want to have fun with other people, and want to create, and want to build. Not people who want to tear other people down, people who want to work together to build people up. That's what RPGs are. It's a team exercise, it's a team sport, and if you just want to bring people down, then you don't have a place at my table. If you just want to tell people how terrible they are, I am not going to let you at my table. And right. I don't think anyone should let you at their table if all you're going to do is lecture and whinge at people and just say, you awful people don't think about things the way that I do. You don't like what I do. And if you don't like, if I don't like what you're doing, then it's bad and no one should enjoy it.
Right. And if I agree, but if a group of people that have that same mindset want to game with each other, mm-hmm. and bring each other down with the who's more woke circle jerk, none of my business. But then don't bring that and try to like rewrite D&D or mm-hmm. What Games Workshop or Pathfinder. Well, I don't give a shit about Pathfinder, to be honest with you, because I wouldn't touch Pathfinder with a 10-foot pole, just because that's complete opposite.
Yeah.
gaming style for me, along with like D&D 4th edition. I just don't like that stuff. But if you want to do that at your own gaming table, fine. But yeah, don't introduce it and then force it down everybody else's throat that aren't like you. Because then you're just trying to like dominate and make everything that you like the law, and you're infringing on everybody else's gaming fun, and then it just kind of ruins it for a lot of people. And that the pushback has started and it's coming. I hope it like snowballs, and then it pushes all those people back to the fringes, where they're not, they don't have a death grip on the heart of gaming culture, like they kind of do now, or are starting to. So we need to push those people back to where they came from, and the fringes, and free gaming from the shackles that they're trying to put on it.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to say real quick, just as we're kind of getting towards the end of our time here, I have a great group right now, and I know some of you guys listen to the show, and I know some of what I said here you might not agree with, because we're a group of people who don't all agree with each other. I'm especially an outlier as far as what I believe politically, and also what I believe religiously within my own group. But if you guys have listened this far, I just want to say, when we come together, when we sit at the table, or recently when we've been sitting at our computers, we make good games together. We put aside our differences and we tell a great story and have fun with each other. And maybe there's pieces of my ideology that inevitably find their way into my game. Maybe there's pieces of yours that find their way into your game. Sure. At the end of the day, that's not what I care about, and that's not what I see at the table. What I see at the table is a bunch of people having fun. So I just wanted to thank my group for giving me that. Even though we all, kind of fall in different places and, come from different worlds, we come together and we play games, and that's what it's all about. We're making fun and making memories at our tables, and if there's one thing I want to take away from this episode, it's that RPGs are about building fun. And anyone who doesn't want to do that can get bent. You can leave.
Yeah, well said.
All right. So, I hope you guys stayed with us for this whole thing. I imagine this could end up being controversial for a few people. Again, just because of where everyone kind of falls and the way things have been politicized. But ultimately, I hope that you guys heard us out. And I hope that you gave us a fair shake, even if just by the title of this episode, that you're probably not going to like what we have to say about certain things. But I hope you guys gave us a fair chance, and I hope that you take a little bit of what we said away from this and bring it to your table. So as we're kind of reaching the end of your time here, Venger, once again, I just want to give you some time to plug your stuff, talk about your blog, talk about Fuschia Malaise again, and just remind everyone if they want some Venger Satanis, where can they find it?
Okay, yeah. My blog is just Blogger Venger's Old School Gaming Blog. Just Google it. It's like the first one that comes up. Schultz is still doing awesome. The PDF is selling like hotcakes, and the PDF of Schultz, Fuschia Malaise as well. I got a picture of the book. here. It's Eldritch, Gonzo, science fantasy, post-apocalyptic, campaign setting, and I personally don't like setting books that just drone on about the lore and the world, and mention a whole bunch of different places, and never get to the meat, the meat and potatoes of the setting, like the gameable stuff. So that's why I put a whole lot of, it's just chock full of adventures and monsters and magic items, random tables, so many random tables. It's ridiculous how many random tables I put in, especially Fuschia Malaise. And the Chult, of course, the majority of that book is the Black Pyramid, which is a mega dungeon that's Gonzo turned up to 11. And there's a lot of cool old stuff in Fuschia Malaise too. All kinds of different like dungeons, smaller things. Because I did such, I did 111 rooms of this mega dungeon in Chult, and I want to do like several smaller things at Fuschia Malaise. I did that, but there's a quite extensive, like sci-fi, like off-worlder facility on the planet that's refining the Zoth, which is a big deal there, and which is like a eldritch space drug. It's kind of like a central theme of the Chult campaign setting. So there's stuff like that. Also includes the very brief OSR hack, which I call Crimson Dragon Slayer. That's been my own kind of game that I've been refining along the way for like the last, 7 years maybe. It's basically an abridged version of old school D&D, but it's got some modern, like 5th edition adjustments to it. So it feels very familiar. It's super duper rules light. It's like D&D, but in arcade mode, as one of my reviewer friends suggested. And so that's in there too. It's just a good time. I try to put as much content as I can. Because I'm always thinking in the back of my head, like, what if this is the last RPG release I ever do? I don't want to leave anything on the table. I want to put as much content and as much valuable stuff in it as I possibly can for the reader and the dungeon master, game master, whatever, who's going to take this up and make it their own and create different worlds, for their player characters to inhabit. So I think I did a pretty good job. And the production values are like off the chart. Like Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, D&D, they got nothing on this. This is a luxury item. It's the highest quality that you can get in a book, really. So for all those reasons, I encourage you to get the PDF, get the hardcover from me, and that's it.
Gotcha. Love to hear it. Love to hear people with high production value doing their own thing in this world, because, ultimately that's what we do. That's what we do in RPGs.
Yeah.
We do our own thing and we do it well. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. I know this was kind of a unique episode, but I hope that you all kind of took something from it. Stuff like this is, not on the same topic, but, stuff about getting in the minds of why we do what we do in RPGs. That's really what I want to do moving forward with this show. And we'll get the chance to do a lot of that next week when Joe DeSimone from the Academy of Games comes on. You heard him on Vintage RPG not too terribly long ago. He's coming on to talk about teaching game design to kids and teens and the value that, skills in RPG design and RPG playing can bring both as a kid and in the workforce. So that'll be cool. Obviously, this Saturday, we're looking into some more great OSR weirdness because the Phylactery issue 2 is out now for backers. Friend of the show, Levi Combs, does great work all the time. All of his usual Murderer's Row of collaborators are on this one, so we'll be taking a look at all those great OSR zine details from that. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are too. And until then, guys, whether you rolled a 1 or 20, I'm so glad that you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard, and I'll see you next time.